Historic Australia. In this episode, we look at the Battle of Vinegar Hill, or the Irish Rebellion. To understand the Vinegar Hill battle, or the Irish Rebellion, you really need to go back to Ireland, where it began. It was in the Irish summer. The British had been taking over Ireland since the dawn of time. But in South Leinster, they put up a fight in the summer of 1798, after hearing how the American Revolution occurred and America was now their own country. They didn't allow British to rule them anymore. This really inspired the Leinster Irishmen to come together and form the United Irishmen, a group that was going to stand up to the British rule, to the British government. And that's what they did. In that summer of 1798, nearly 30,000 lost their lives in the fight of Vinegar Hill, the Irish Rebellion. In a town outside of County Wexford called Enniscorthy. The battle on the 21st of June was where it all came to a head. The Irish lost the battle. Martial law was in place until 1806 in these areas to prevent another uprising. Many of them escaped. Of those that didn't escape and who weren't killed, were sent to Australia, transported probably for life. The Irishmen who came to Australia as convicts banded together pretty quickly. A lot of them were actually from the original Vinegar Hill Irish Rebellion, and those who weren't were kind of recruited by a few ringleaders, namely Philip Cunningham and William Johnson. There was a note sent around primarily the Castle Hill area where a lot of the Irish convicts were doing their time. There were a few Irishmen of Parramatta and some out at the Hawkesbury as well, and these notes went flying around to all the Irishmen that they could contact of an uprising. It was quickly called the Battle of Vinegar Hill, Sydney, naming after the Vinegar Hill battle that many of the Irishmen have come from. It seems that many of the Irishmen were unsure whether to band together at all. The note had gone around. There were some Irishmen who actually passed the letter on to the government officials. You could call this as being a traitor to their country or their homeland of Ireland. But some of these men were really trying to make a new life for themselves. And knowing that the battle was defeated back home in Ireland, they probably figured it would be here too. The note that was handed around was apparently only 4 lines long, and it was stating that there would be an uprising on the 4th day. This time was early March of 1804, and they intended it to be the 4th of March. The password was St. Peter. I'm not entirely sure the significance of St. Peter, as he was the saint of popes, and being an ex-fisherman, it doesn't really fit into a rebellion as such. But nevertheless, St. Peter's was the code. Everything else on the note hasn't been advised, but it possibly said fellow Irishmen and death or liberty, which was the motto for the Irish Rebellion. A Mr. Sloane, who was an overseer to Captain Abbott at the Parramatta Barracks, advised on Saturday evening, the March 3rd of 1804, that one of the Irishmen from the Castle Hill area, a Mr. Keogh, had advised that another Irishman, Mr. Paul, had shown him this paper, advising of the uprising against the government on the 4th of March. Apparently Mr. Keogh had advised that he had suffered so much before regarding the Irish Rebellion of Ireland that he didn't want any part of it. Captain Abbott advised that Sloane could account for Keogh's good behaviour and he was of good character, so he could be trusted. And they passed the information also on to Reverend Samuel Marsden, also in the Parramatta area. and the information quickly went to the city. They also had 2 other men who had received the letter and come forward. They knew now that this uprising was about to happen. So word had now reached Governor Gidley King about the rebellion. Although the city was getting ready, all was quiet on Sunday the 4th until the evening. The authority in Parramatta wasn't really taking the situation very serious, as we learned that Reverend Samuel Marsden was actually at his home with his family entertaining guests. He had a few people, as well as the MacArthurs, for dinner. This was all to come to an abrupt end, as in Castle Hill at 8 p.m, a small hut occupied by prisoners was deliberately set alight and a bell was rung. Philip Cunningham, a stonemason, had broken into the house and took the firearms and ammunition. The message didn't reach Parramatta till around 9 p.m, where a drum beat to alarm everybody, a call to arms.
This is modern day rural reserve. This is the point where the rebels, led by Johnson and Cunningham, were positioned. And they were trying to get as many men together as they could to march on Parramatta. They'd expected to meet up with a bunch of other sympathisers, basically other Irishmen, the majority, who were to help them. It's sort of it's debatable how it happened, but whether or not the men from the Hawkesbury, they might have just retreated. They might. There's a story that says that they surrendered. I think it was more or less because of the confusion. There was no way to directly contact people other than word of mouth, and things get misconstrued, I guess, and evidently they weren't here. So the men came here, and as you can see, which we had some photos and stuff to the video. Basically, in this direction over behind the trees here, you can see Parramatta, and there'll be better views for which I'll add, which will be coming up. This was a good vantage point that they believed they could see, and they could see a lot more in those days. But the soldiers, led by Major Johnson, they were hot on their tail by this point, and so the idea of going from here to Parramatta to basically confront Governor Gidley King didn't seem like a good one at the time. So, as the story goes, they said, well, let's try and see if we can match up. Let's try and see if we can find these people who wanted to, the other group from the Hawkesbury, and basically we'll head that way. We'll head north, and hopefully we'll find them along the way. So they got as far as which our next point is going to be, Castle Brook Cemetery. As far as there, up on the hill, and basically that was the point where the battle took place. There was no way around it. There was no way out. They had to front them, and they did. And so it's a good thing. This particular park here is owned by the Water Board, which you can see over here. They've got it's a reservoir here for the local area. Back in 2004, there was talk of them. They wanted to sell this land to be able to subdivide into residential, but thankfully, through the petitioning of locals and some local members in government, it was decided by the Water Board, Sydney Water, to can that and hold on to it, which is important because for the 226 years now coming up in 2022 that this battle took place, these particular places here, I mean, they need to be held on to, if only for people of Irish descent like we are, and like many many others in the country. And so this was the point. This was the point before the point of no return, and before the point where things got bad, and and so the rest is history, which I'll explain in the rest of the video. So there it is. Now we go to the cemetery.
Here at Constitution Hill, where the Irish force would have lit fires to make it look as though they were larger in numbers than they were. Here we've got the Sydney Water Tower here. And off in the distance we've got the city, and that's who they wanted to alert. They lit the fires so that those in the city could see, as well as Parramatta. I mean, they're buildings now, but back in the day there wouldn't have been so much greenery, and the trees here wouldn't have been so bushy. They probably would have had some bush turkeys, like that one sitting in the tree up there. They would have been running around. They were going to get into Parramatta, and they would have, well, they were already looting. They were looting on their way, all different farms, wreaking a bit of havoc, gaining guns, so as that they could take on the British.
Before we head up to the cemetery, the Castle Brook Cemetery, the site of the agreed upon Battle of Vinegar Hill, aka Castle Hill Rebellion, we thought we'd just do a little necrophonic here, just as a look, just to have a look. Who knows? I mean, spirits can be out any time of the day or night, so I think it's a misconception that they can't be. They'll be easily seen in the night time, but you know. Let's just have a look anyhow. So is there anyone here? This area here, this spot we are up upon in Constitution Hill, modern day Wentworthville Toongabbie. Anyone around? Does anyone want to say anything that might be relevant? The reverb on. Yes. Anything relevant? Can you say death or liberty? Death or liberty? Death or liberty? Liberty? What about liberty?
Meeting?
Death or liberty? Can you say Battle of Vinegar Hill? What about Johnson? Cunningham? Anything you like that we can understand. Try saying anything that we can understand. We'll review this later, but we thought we'd have a go anyway, even though it's still the afternoon.
And it may not have been that anybody was actually in battle here.
They may not. Yeah, I know.
I mean, it was mainly just as a summit that they could.
It was a good vantage point, I guess. Yeah, you're right. I mean, I suppose it's a long shot, but you know, possibly somebody who came back here. Who knows? I mean, it's just, maybe somebody can hear us. What do you? Is there anything you can say that we might understand? No. Just asking. Hey? What do you reckon? Death or liberty? About F the redcoats.
Croppies.
Down for British.
Croppies rule.
Yeah, up the Irish. What about up your ass? Sorry. No? All right.
What happened on this spot?
What happened here?
3.
You a goodie or a baddie? Anyway, we'll review this. We'll go up. We'll continue our journey now, and we'll continue this story. See you soon.
Just popping the K2 meter on for a moment, just to see if there's anybody still around from the old Vinegar Hill days, or anybody at all at this park that would like to perhaps touch that device, make it light up. Anyone would like to touch the device just to let us know that you're here? Here at Constitution Hill. It's pretty quiet around here. Seen some doggos come through this park. It's a little area that people can run their dogs. Bit of shade to sit down. Seems pretty quiet. Filming this on New Year's Eve. Spirits may be over in the city waiting for the fireworks to happen. Alright, it was worth a try. Give it a couple of minutes. Last chance to let us know that you're here. Maybe not a lot of bloodshed on these premises. Yeah, someone might have been willing to touch the device. That's okay. Yeah, it'd be a good spot to film at night.
Come back here anyway.
Plenty of air guard.
Check it out now. Come back.
Yeah, good idea. Alright. We shall try again another time.
We'll head to the cemetery now.
Yes, off to Rouse Hill
Do our thing up there.
for the conclusion of our Vinegar Hill.
So here we are, we've made it up to, this is the
site, Vinegar Hill. This is a place called Castle Brook Memorial Park, cemetery here at Rouse Hill. And after many years of basically searching old records, this is where they've said this is where the culmination of the whole the big glue happened basically. So Johnson and William Johnson and Cunningham were pursued from where we just were over at Toongabbie. That was the point where they were stationed. Basically, they were being pursued from there. And anyway, so they knew that they were getting. They knew that things were getting bad now because the others didn't turn up from Hawkesbury. So they made it up here in this vicinity. So the main road's down the bottom there, basically where that new construction is, and between there and here was the final stand, and it was it was death or liberty, and it was basically it was something that they called the Battle of Vinegar Hill because in 1798. The original Battle of Vinegar Hill took place in Ireland in County Wexford. It was back at the time. There was more. The relevance of it was known as the Castle Hill Rebellion because originally, as we've spoken of, they were at the Castle Hill government farm. It was a peasant farm, and because of the way they were treated badly, they'd had enough. So that's what culminated it. This wasn't going to be the site, and they put this nice memorial here. It's a tribute of something, at least it's something. But this wasn't going to be the site. This wasn't going to be where it all ended for everybody. And of course, well, in the case of William Johnson, they hung him basically over at Prospect Hill. It's not far from Parramatta. They hung him up and they gibbeted him, which means that they left him up there to rot, basically to give anyone that's got any ideas about pulling any of this sort of shit again, think twice, because will kill you, basically. So they're brave men, and we salute every one of them.
Rouse Hill Cemetery, Castle Brook, a beautiful, well-kept cemetery. Shame we're here on a windy day. That's possibly wreaking havoc with the microphones today. With any luck, it's not too bad. These trees may have been here when the Battle of Vinegar Hill, the Australian Battle of Vinegar Hill, around 1800 would fall. The battle wasn't that long, but the Irish planned it out, and unfortunately one of them did them in by telling the British where they were and what they were going to do, which in the end foiled the rebellion and ended with the capture of many of the key organisers, such as William Johnson, who were hung in Windsor, gibbeted, put on display for days as a reminder of what happens when you cross the British Unfortunately, the cemetery shuts at 5, so we're unable to come here after dark. So the only chance we have at the moment to speak to people who have passed, and those of the Irish Rebellion, is to come here during daylight hours. At least until daylight savings ends, and then we can come back, and still won't be pitch dark, but it'll be darker. And we'll come here just before 5, see if we can talk to someone after March when we go back to normal hours. Here at Castle Brook Cemetery, Mouse Hill. Where it's said the Battle of Vinegar Hill was fought around this area, and they've got the monument created in their honour. And the rest of the cemetery. So it was on these grounds, these fields, before it was a cemetery, that the Battle of Vinegar Hill was fought out. And I've even got an uncle that's buried in the cemetery down there. So we'll run the necrophonic app just for a moment to see if there's anything that would like to be said. It's a bit noisy here today. Would anyone from the Battle of Vinegar Hill like to say something? While we're here, men. There's a lot of men that fought here. Could be a bit windy here, apologies. Turn around a little bit, see if we can block some of the wind. Was anyone here that fought in the Great Battle of Vinegar Hill? What about the fact that you were tricked? Liberty or death? You're fighting for your freedom. William Johnson, one of the leaders in the battle for the Irish. He was hung in Windsor, gibbeted. And all they wanted was their freedom. Try and speak as loud as possible and as clear as possible. Ooh. Be very clear. Do you like the monument that there's put in your honour? The monument that's been erected here for the men of the Irish. There's a lot of activity happening. We are in a cemetery, so there might be quite a few voices from people not related to the Vinegar Hill. And due to the wind, unfortunately, it's making it a little difficult to hear. That's quite interesting, that sound. I'll turn that off. Turn the recorder off.
What about reverb? What about what?
Turn the white noise off. We just want to hear the voices. You want to sit down? We'll have a little look at the monument. Is anyone here that would like to make contact with us? Sounded like, why are you here? We're here to try and make contact if anyone would like to speak. Just giving anyone the opportunity who may like to say something to us. It's very windy, so you may have to speak up. It's a beautiful cemetery. We're seating in a pergola area of a new part of the cemetery. This is such a nice place when the time comes. It's very serene, tranquil. Hill. It's beautiful. There's lots of plants and flowers here.
Is there anyone who would like to make contact with us? You guys want food?
Sound like please don't leave.
No, it said please. It said I want to go home.
It's quite a bit of wind, so it may not come through.
Wait, it's not just Is there anyone who would like to make contact with us? It's just my name. This is Erin. That's it, Erin.
They're feeling things like sick in the stomach or headache. Maybe we'll go down this way.
I did actually feel like a really bad pain in my stomach.
Ooh, scary.
We are here as a friend. Can I sit here? Can I sit down?
It's not fun. We'll be leaving soon. Would anyone from the Battle of Vinegar Hill or anyone here like to say a few words before we leave?
Wait. I think one of them said wait.
Beautiful place.
Is there anyone here who would like to make in contact with us?
That's all right. Many people may be just content and they're happy and they don't need to make contact with us. But we'll review this footage a bit later and hopefully we can hear over the sound of the wind howling. We can hear That's right. We'll end it here for now. Wish?
I think these are the white or wish.
Yeah, we've taped for a little while now, so we'll leave these lovely people to rest in peace. And there's people coming up here, so we'll let other people pay some respects to this area. And we'll try a little bit maybe over the other side, but we will be moving on to the next location very shortly. Thank you for joining us on our investigation of the Battle of Vinegar Hill. Stay tuned for upcoming episodes where we look into the early settlements in the Parramatta region, as well as looking at David Lennox, who built many of the bridges around Western Sydney. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe and slap that notification bell so you're aware when we post more episodes.